Welcome back to the third and final section of healthy relationships. It's helpful to have guidelines on how to communicate. We're going to look at some tips for the speaker and tips for the listener. This could be something that you could practice with a partner, friend, family member, flatmate. Let's have a look. So we're going to consider communicating as the speaker, expressing emotions and ideas. More information on this can be found in the handout. Just click below. Stating views subjectively. This involves understanding that our views are just our views. They are our version of the events, meaning that the other person will have their views and their version of events. Express your emotions and not just ideas. Expressing how you're feeling and what led to you feeling that, rather than ideas about making changes. For example, saying I feel upset because I've been taking on more of the household tasks and chores, rather than I think we should split the household chores more evenly between us. The first sentence provides some context about the feelings. I feel upset because I've been taking on more of the household tasks and chores. Whereas the second sentence jumps straight into an idea. I think we should split the household chores more evenly between us. Including positive feelings can help the other person to not feel criticised or attacked by something they may not be doing well. Saying something positive might also show appreciation for the things that the other person does, which is more likely to encourage them to be receptive of your emotions and ideas. Making our statements as specific as possible. So trying to be specific rather than vague. For example, over the weekend, I cooked and washed up all the meals, rather than I always cook and clean. This makes the information easier for the other person to digest and hear, which increases the likelihood of changes being made. Providing information in paragraphs is really helpful when we're expressing emotions about the negative things or things we might like to be different in our relationships, because a continuous stream of information can feel overwhelming and upsetting. Saying this, it might be helpful to limit the number of paragraphs in one conversation, rather than communicating all emotions about a variety of things in one go. So expressing your feelings and thoughts with tact and timing. Be sensitive to the recipient. Think about how you can calmly and nicely communicate to the other person. Also, think about when might be the best time to communicate for both parties to the other person. For example, I know you had an appointment today or a busy day, so could we catch up on Saturday afternoon? Sometimes when we're tired, hungry and stressed, the way that we'd like to communicate isn't always the way that we do communicate. So there may be times that are better for us. It's good to be able to negotiate that and to recognise when things might escalate into a less helpful communication. We're now going to look at the listener. Listening skills. Ways to respond while your partner is speaking. Friend, colleague, family member. Listening is key to relationships, but it is important to listen to understand and not just to respond. Facial expressions, eye contact, nodding, show that you accept your partner's thoughts and feelings, and you're looking at the situation from your partner's perspective. Summarising, for example, you are unhappy about the time I get home. That's an example of ways to respond after your partner finishes speaking. Summarize back your partner's most important feelings and thoughts. To reflect can help you to understand what they're saying and also give you time to respond in a way that's proactive as opposed to just being reactive. So we've identified the importance of developing good speaking and listening skills, and where possible, communication practice could support that further. Not all of us will have the opportunity to practice with somebody. We've added a link entitled "It's Not About the Nail" underneath this section that provides really good listening and speaking tips in a humorous way. Why don't you pause and review that? Now might be a good time for us to think about top tips from what we've been looking at today in terms of how we can maintain and develop healthy relationships. You might want to consider, what are you going to take away from today's session? How are you going to apply that learning in your daily life? What could you do differently? We're going to look through some suggestions. So, top tips and suggestions for the week ahead. It's a good time to create some certainties when there's a level of worry and anxiety and things that feel out of our control. What could support healthy relationships could be agreements on who is using which parts of the home and when. For those of us who live with other people and who are feeling irritated or overwhelmed by constant togetherness, it may help to agree who is going to use which parts of the home. For instance, during the day when we may need to work and or look after children. This may be about planning our day, sharing or alternating use of space, being aware of others' needs, or just doing things a little differently. In terms of household tasks, such as washing up, cleaning and food shopping, having a daily routine may help us to feel more in control at a time when we have lost a lot of control over how our daily lives look. To help us to have time and space to consider helpful ways of speaking, listening, some of the different factors, looking at the relationship, healthy relationships it would be really helpful to be consistent with your daily walk or exercise. Getting some fresh air helps us, being a bit active helps us to release endorphins. For those of us who aren't able to get out, getting some fresh air, opening the windows, the curtains, trying to do some gentle stretching exercises, that could also help. As we think about the week ahead, it's a good time for all of us to keep talking and to keep listening. It could be helpful to create a time each day to express. It may be to agree a time each day when everyone is in our home, can say how they're feeling. For instance, it could be what we have found most difficult and what we are grateful for that day. For some of us who live alone, it may be that we might need to agree that time and communicate via phone or any other methods of communication like video conferencing, using Zoom or WhatsApp. It's important to allow a space to share and listen without judgment. Whatever mode of communication we're using, sharing feelings without fear of being criticised or told off can help us feel calmer and closer to each other. It may help to remember that everyone is affected by the coronavirus situation and may be feeling more anxious and perhaps more irritable than usual. It's not easy, but it's helpful to recognize that so we can try to practice compassion for each other and also for ourselves, and ways that we can help ourselves to feel better. So finally, please don't forget the links below this week's session. They include, but are not limited to, information on local advice and support, including helplines, tips on speaking to and supporting children, friends and family about the coronavirus, help you to put into practice ways of setting time aside to connect with friends and family, to be present. So really paying attention to the other people in your life and trying not to be distracted by your phone or your work or other interests. Listen, really listening to what others are saying and trying to understand and focus on their needs in that moment. And allowing yourself to be listened to, honestly sharing how you're feeling, allowing yourself to be heard and supported by others. Recognizing unhealthy relationships. Harmful relationships can make us unhappy. Recognizing this can help us to move forward and find solutions. This may be a challenging time, but it could also be a time where we develop skills in working together to maintain healthy relationships, staying connected, talking and listening by whatever means we have, taking better care of ourselves and each other. Thank you for listening. Here's some information, recommended reading that you may find helpful and building on your knowledge, understanding and application of ways to build a healthy relationship. Take care of yourself.